Makes perfect sense. And I want to go back to the whole life challenge too, because I'm super fascinated by this concept because I feel like there is so much health and wellness information out there. And the reason I wanted to have you on is that I feel like the big key that people struggle with the most is the consistency and the motivation, because a lot of us know a lot of information about what we should be doing. And it's actual day-to-day implementation and also sticking with it for the long term that really makes the difference. And that's the hardest part. So I feel like you've really addressed this challenge, but I'd love if you could go a little deeper on like how you incorporate those different steps and what that actually looks like in a day-to-day scenario.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Engagement is a really, really big thing, and keeping people engaged and interested is a really, really big thing. And, we tried, and our first attempt at the Whole Life Challenge was a dismal failure. It wasn't a failure in that it was a step in making the Whole Life Challenge, but it was a failure in terms of affecting my community because we built it as a educational platform. We called it Food University, and it was an 8 or 10 week course. You had to get blood work at the beginning and blood work at the end. And we were teaching things about hormones and body systems and circulatory and how all these things on the outside affected what was going on the inside. And the information was really, really good, but we found that we only had 12 people sign up for the course. I think about 2 people were still engaged in it by the end. And it really wasn't translating to action in people's life. And we realized okay, well, that doesn't work. More information, and I think you hit the nail on the head. There's so much information available. I mean, if you want to know something about any part of your body and you Google it, it might not be the end all be all, and you have to be careful of your sources, but there is information available. And a lot of it is really, really good information available at your fingertips. People still have trouble with motivation. So the answer is not more information. The answer that we came up with was action. Like, how do we wanted to build action and requirements for action into the practice and into the challenge, into the game. But we wanted to do it in a way that didn't require judging and didn't require, it requires rules, but it doesn't require a doctorate degree to interpret the rules. And we also didn't want to turn people into followers of the gurus of the Whole Life Challenge. Because for us, the mother lode for me as a trainer was to stop people from thinking they need a trainer. Learn what you need to learn and then go back to your life and do it in your life and be responsible for making the right choices and doing the right things that you already know how to do because you learned how to do it. And so that was a really important part of building in the challenge. It's funny because when people sign up sometimes, they're like, well, where's the meal plan? And where's the exercise plan? I want to know what I need to do every day. And we're like, well, there isn't any. And it's not that there isn't any info available on our website for that stuff. There's tons. There are tons of options. But the difference between what we're doing and what a lot of other people are doing is we don't tell you what to do. We don't tell you how long to do it. We don't tell you, how to properly prepare or give you even a food list we give you a food list of what's allowed and what's not allowed, but we don't give you a shopping list. We don't give you recipes to follow. We encourage and actually kind of require you to actually do some work and to be a responsible party in your own health and fitness. And when we get engagement that way, when we get people who are willing to do that, because it does limit the audience. It definitely limits the people who are willing to do this. I'd say if we were doing some sort of a social media massive, do this thing, there would be a level of expectation of give me what I need to do this. And, let me just follow the directions and make it easy for me. And it doesn't lead to long-term change. All that happens at the end of that is, okay, now I need the next one. And now I need the next set of instructional rules. So when you engage this way, you actually become part of the process of your own process and you start experimenting and exploring. So that's part of the secret behind the engagement. And the other part is the points and the accountability with the points and the camaraderie and community around writing reflections. The points, people have very interesting relationships with points. Some people will die for points. I mean, they will do, I shouldn't say die. They'll do anything in the world to get points and to get more points. And so they look at the whole life challenge and they look at the rules, and the rules are very simple. And they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to go for a perfect score, of course. And that is not always the best way to approach the challenge, because it means very often that you're making choices that void your life of joy, that void your life of, not your complete life, but like choices you'd make if you were going to your best friend's wedding and you're like, okay, I'm not having a piece of cake because that would cost me a point in the whole life challenge. Or I have to get my workout in first thing in the morning, so I'm going to go to bed early during the bachelor party and not drink because I was going to lose my points in drinking. And I've got to get to bed early so I can get up in the morning and get my workout in because I won't have another time to do it. Like, I admire those choices. They're great. But there are events in life that supersede those being that super accountable for points. So having points in the mix allows people to start to make those choices and start to make those decisions and be engaged, knowing the consequences of the choices, and then being able to say, you know what, it's worth it. The point's worth the 5 points or the 2 points or whatever was worth the event that I got to participate in. And then sometimes it works the other way around. That bowl of ice cream that is calling my name from the freezer at 11 o'clock at night when nobody else is around, that's not worth the point. I don't need to do that. And so it works both ways. And, you know, the points feed right into the team accountability board because other people are looking at your points. And that adds another level of being accountable, as does your writing and your reflections. So each day that you write something about your progress, it's not private, it's public. And so everybody on your team can see what you're writing about. And hopefully, you know, you're being perhaps of the most intimate secrets of your life, you're not going to share because it's not intended for that. But you get an opportunity to be vulnerable and to test out being vulnerable in your community, and, you know, share with where you need support and where you need help, and then with your successes. So that builds this community piece that's really, really powerful in these small teams.
I love that. And I love what you just said about balance and about how there are times when the people in the community, the event, are more important, because to me, I think that's something else that can be missed, especially when we get so in depth into the health and wellness world, is that health and wellness is not necessarily a means in and of itself or an end in and of itself. We are healthy. We try to be healthy and vibrant so that we can be more alive in our relationships, more in community with people, to have a more rich life, not just for the sake of eating more vegetables. And I love that you brought that point up and that you balance that out. I think that's so important.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, that was yeah, it's funny because when we did the first Whole Life Challenge, we had a lot of people who went after it to win and went after it to score all the points. And in fact, our bonuses, we had bonus points back then, and you could actually earn points on top of a perfect score. So not only did that was an inadvertent mistake, a misstep. I don't know if it was a mistake, but we had people who were not just going for a perfect score. They were going for a perfect score plus a perfect bonus score on top of the perfect score. And we changed that really quickly. We're like, look, you don't get to keep points. You get bonuses, you get bonus tokens, but they got to be used. And they're there to keep you motivated, keep you interested, have fun with, but they don't count for more on top of a perfect score. Because otherwise, you know, this quest for perfection is just is not supportive of really your own health and well-being.
For sure. And I totally get the appeal of it, though, because I'm a perfectionist in recovery and also very competitive. So I can totally see how people could get very competitive with that. Can you walk us through a little bit like examples of each of the 7 daily practices and what points might actually look like in a practical sense?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's see. The first one that is look, the Whole Life Challenge is not a nutrition challenge. I should say that right out of the gate. But nutrition and food is the thing that's in front of people, for most people, 3 to 5 or 6 times a day. So it's the one that if you're going to struggle with something, a lot of people struggle with. So there's obviously a food component. Every day of the challenge, you start in the food category with 5 points. And at the beginning of the challenge, you choose the level that you want to play on. We have a kickstart level, a lifestyle level, and a performance level. They're really based on improving the hormonal balance in your system and reducing inflammation. But if you were to compare the performance level to something else that's you want a quick comparison, it's close to paleo. It's a very, very similar, second cousin to paleo. The lifestyle level is meant to be more livable for, like long-term livable. If you have, health issues that you're dealing with, that are inflammatory based, we suggest the performance level, and maybe even more strict than the performance level. But if you're looking to live a long life, and that's really more the lifestyle level. And then the Kickstart level is really for people who have been negligent in paying attention to their diet and not really accountable to anything. And they eat Subway for lunch, and they maybe have some fast food 3 days a week, and they may like their diet is in need of triage. And so it just gives a lot more options, and it's a lot easier place to begin. So depending on the level you choose, for every infraction of the rule, so let's say on your level, it doesn't allow for, let's just say, no alcohol, right? So if you decide that having a glass of wine with dinner is really important, maybe it's a business dinner, maybe it's a celebration of some sort, and you want a glass of champagne. If you drink that champagne, you lose a point. So at the end of the day, your goal is to keep all 5 points. You can't lose more than 5. You can't go in the negative. And you score yourself based on the honor system, however many points you got, or not you lost, but how many you got. So you could end a day with 1 point, with anywhere from 0 to 5 points. That is the only area of the 7 daily habits that has a single point gradation in points. Everything else is either you did it or you didn't do it, and they're worth 5 points or no points. So moving on from nutrition, you've got exercise. And exercise is very, very simple. You have to do 10 minutes of exercise, and you get to decide what counts. Now, our advice is it needs to feel like exercise to you. Now, that can include if you're a hardcore athlete and you are on a rest day and your coach tells you, hey, you need to really rest today, you can do active recovery. If you walk your dogs and you're moving around and it's active recovery, that totally counts. If you would consider it part of what you're doing for your fitness, totally counts. My mom can do it. My mom plays, and she's 83 years old, and she walks. So she'll take a long walk. I probably don't ordinarily count walks as exercise for me because I'm at a different place in my fitness. So you get to count what you want to count. And all you got to do is 10 minutes. There are no bonus points for doing more. There are no negative graded points for doing, 5 minutes instead of 10 minutes. You got to get 10 minutes in. And we do the same thing for mobility. So mobility is just a fancy way of saying stretching. And that can be with tools like lacrosse balls or foam rollers or rubber bands. It can be taking a yoga class. It can be just bending over and hanging from your waist for 10 minutes. It's got to be 10 minutes. You can accumulate the 10 minutes over the course of a day, or you can, do them all at one time. You can do it while sitting in front of the television. Again, there's so many options for getting this done and getting it in. The next area is sleep. And sleep, you get to decide what a good night's sleep for you is. So we recommend that people don't make too large jumps from where they are currently. So let's say you're averaging 5 hours a night now. We wouldn't recommend that you jump that up to 7 hours for the challenge. We'd say maybe a good healthy jump would be 5 hours and 15 minutes. And every day you get your 5 hours and 15 minutes, you earn your 5 points. If you don't get your 5:15, you don't get your 5 points. Again, there's no gradation. Hydration is one that's also black and white. We require you to drink 30% of your body weight in ounces of water. So if you weigh 150 pounds, that means 50 ounces of water, which is a little bit less than 2 quarts of water. And, if you're super athletic, or you sweat a lot, or you're training, or you live in the deep south and you're sweating more or it's summertime, then you probably need more water than that. And I don't really know of a scenario where people need less water than that, but I'm sure there is one. If your doctor tells you don't drink that much water, well then, doctor supersedes and pick a number, and that's your number. So we got well-being practices and we've got reflection. I'm going to do reflection first. At the end of every day, we built into the challenge this piece where you have to write about how you're doing or how you've done. And we do that mostly because we want to give people the opportunity not just to do what they have to do, but to think about what they've done and whether or not it's working and whether or not the strategy that they used for doing that thing was a good strategy, without just going through the challenge and going through the motion of doing this stuff. We want